Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Tim M. is one of those lovely older gentlemen that was at my Tuesday meeting. And his story always touched me. It always connected with what he had to say. And his abounding commitment to that meeting, I believe he was the treasurer for 10, 15 years, something like that. 8 years, okay. I stretch the truth sometimes. Anyway, I'm very honored to introduce Tim M.
Old? Moi? My name is Tim McGarry, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 4th, 1987. My home meeting, as Pam mentioned, is the We Agnostics Los Feliz meeting. We get together every Tuesday night, and I am one of the old guys that was there when Pam walked in the door. Worst case of alcoholism I've ever seen, I gotta tell you. Just kidding. The first thing I got to say, being a native Angelino, being a fourth-generation Angelino, welcome to Los Angeles. It may not be the world's finest city, but it's home to me, and I love it. I hope you have a great time here. Welcome. I will do a little bit of my usual first-person narrative, and then I'll talk about my view on belief and non-belief in recovery, and particularly in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I do not present myself as an expert on alcoholism. To this day, I don't pretend to understand it, why it happened to me, how it works. I really have no idea. Now, there are some things I know. I know that there are some reasons that don't apply to me. I did not have an unhappy childhood. I'm one of those very fortunate people who had warm, loving parents who were generous with time, attention, and affection. So I can't use that excuse. I'm sorry. I'm sometimes at a loss to understand the talk about not fitting in. I don't quite relate. Again, maybe I'm just lucky. But when I was 19 years old and drafted into the United States Army, it was miserable. And of course, these were in the days when you got invited. I was invited. Thank you, Richard Nixon. I was 19 years old. I hated my existence. I had nothing to do at night. And that's the point at which I became a daily drinker. And I loved it. You know, I was a good boy. I stayed away from drugs. They scared me. They were illegal. I might go to jail, end up in prison. But I loved alcohol. And what I loved was the feeling of a weight being lifted. Alcohol to me was buoyancy. I mean, it took my cares away. It took that feeling of heaviness away. I enjoyed getting intoxicated. That is why I drank. It wasn't because I was unhappy or mistreated. I loved getting high. And I did every night. And for the first 10 years, it didn't seem to cause many problems. I didn't have blackouts. I knew what I did. I knew what I said. I knew where I went, and I had a good time. That changed. That changed when I turned 30, and all of a sudden, the drinking intensified dramatically, and I became a blackout drinker. And I did not know where I had been, what I had said, what I had done. I had no idea, and it was extremely frightening. But still, I persisted. I kept on going. I'm sure we can all relate to that. And it just got worse and worse. I think it was, I was employed at the time, and I'm sufficiently middle class that I have a horror of unemployment. Of course, then the recession happened, but that's another story. I certainly wanted to keep my job, but the worst thing about alcoholism to me was the psychological state that it left me in. I was frightened. I was ashamed. I was alone. I was completely alone. To me, the defining attribute of the alcoholic experience is total solitude. And that's the way I was. And the kind of solitude was horrible because I had to wear a mask. I had to be alone because I couldn't face you. I couldn't tell you the truth. I had to hide. And so my existence was one of total falsehood. It was a mask all the time. And I got so good at keeping you from knowing what was going on with me that I kept me from knowing what was going on with me. And I lost the ability to connect with my own feelings. And so when it just got more than I could bear, there I was, someone who simply did not know how I felt, with one exception: anger. I understood anger. And to this day, I'm still very talented at anger. It's one of my specialties. But I was a man at the bottom of a pit. Now, my development as a skeptic and non-believer, and that's how I tend to refer to myself, developed completely independently of my alcoholism or my recovery. I was a philosophy major in college, and my brand of non-belief has sort of a whiff of academia about it, I suppose. But it's a genuine conviction nonetheless, and I simply see no connection between my convictions regarding the non-existence of God with just about anything else, certainly not with alcoholism or recovery. And so that was a problem from the beginning. But when I got sober, you had a choice. It was either the SHIC treatment or AA. So my choice was to take this stuff that would make me throw up or sit in a room of people and talk. So the choice was fairly easy. I came into AA. And at first, the first 6 months, I didn't say a word. I just listened and was turned off most of the time. But one day I was listening at a meeting, and I heard a man talk about his newborn son. And here he was suddenly confronted with being a father. And maybe because I had a wonderful father, I fastened onto that. I related to it. I listened to him. And I began to feel some of what he was feeling. And that is how the positive side of AA developed for me. I learned to listen. And in what you told me, I rediscovered my own feelings. I became a feeling human being once again for the first time in a very long time. And then I discovered the We Agnostics meetings. I got to meet Charlie Polachek. And I came to meetings where the authentic human emotion came to the fore, always at every meeting. And it came with depth and conviction and honesty, and it meant something. At these meetings, I didn't have to sit and listen to rhetoric. I didn't have to sit and listen to cliches. I didn't have to listen to the book thumpers who, the first however many pages, who were repeating some form of fundamentalist Christianity that I could not bear. Instead, I heard human honesty. I saw compassion at work. And these meetings really brought me alive in recovery. I've been attending We Agnostics meetings here in Los Angeles since 1992. And I'm extremely grateful to the people who came before us, to people like Joan, who showed the way for us. And by the way, Joan, 2 of my sisters went to St. Mary's Academy, but I got revenge. I sent my daughter to Immaculate Heart. So if you're local, you'll understand what that means. I really appreciated what Josie had to say about respect for the non-believer and about free thinking being an attribute, a potential attribute for non-believers as well. I am not interested in atheism as a movement. I'm not particularly fond of Mr. Richard Dawkins. I respect the religious sensibility where I find it. I have a brother who's a Jesuit priest, so I guess I better. But what I do believe is that it's important that we stand up in Alcoholics Anonymous, in this fellowship, and make ourselves clearly heard that Alcoholics Anonymous should be a place where you can share honestly what you believe and honestly how you feel. Without honesty, this program isn't worth a hill of beans. It doesn't work. And I think it is important that we arrive at a position of mutual respect where each of us can feel free to express openly, without shame, without reticence, how we feel. I'll just end on the following note. I think there are two AAs if you examine the history of our movement. There is the AA of Bill Wilson in Towns Hospital on some very good drugs, seeing a bright white light. And this was the foundation of his conviction. And then there's the Bill Wilson who was in Akron, Ohio, doing something with somebody's stock, I don't know what. And he suffered a crushing defeat. His proxy war collapsed, and he trudged back to the hotel, and he was in the lobby, and he heard the lilt of conversation and the sound of glasses and silverware, and all the feelings came rushing back to him. And despite all the disasters that he'd endured for so many, many years, time and time again, he still wanted to walk in that bar and drink again. And suddenly, somehow, the thought came to him, I need to talk to another alcoholic. To me, that is the AA to which we are heir. That is the AA that is truly humanist, an AA that is for those who understand that the fellowship is a place where we return to life. And that's how I see it, and that's the message that I would carry. And I hope that, just as Joan said, and just as Josie said, that we do take the message from here and keep this thing going. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we're at the lunch break. The sandwiches and stuff is free. The bottled water is free. We are selling chips and muffins and soda pop. So enjoy, and we take an hour break. Thank you.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.